Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. And now that the government have formally announced their intention to delay Brexit import controls yet again, I'd like to take a look at how their reasons seem to have changed since the unofficial announcement, what their new plan is, and consider if we'll actually see the controls implemented next year or if they're going to be announcing another delay. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel. So it's like the Tories took the tried and tested will they, won't they storylines from television series and applied it to Brexit. Long before we left the EU, will the government be able to apply import controls? No. Oh, but they've got a plan to do them later, so it's fine. Then later still. By the reckoning of journalists, the government yesterday formally announced a fifth delay to standards controls on imports into Britain. So in order to play the next round of will they or won't they implement them at last, or if we'll see a sixth delay next year, we need to know why they delayed them this time and consider whether the same circumstances will apply for their new timetable, which has been shunted 3 months into the future, by the way. So when the government unofficially announced the delay earlier this month, it was because of the fear of inflation. Now, certainly requiring health certificates on a lot of goods would have led to extra costs on the food that could come into the country, as well as shortages of those that could not. However, the latest from the government seems to be that although there would have been an inflationary effect, it would have only been small. Oh, yes. Yeah, said the government. We reckon 0.2% over 3 years, according to the Financial Times. What rubbish. Everyone involved in supply chains has talked about inflation being a major issue here. They still say it would have led to significant inflation. But if the government disagrees, why are they delaying them then? When they unofficially announced the delay, it was all supposed to be about inflation. That was what was coming out of the Treasury. Now they say, oh, no, inflation, oh yeah, but it wouldn't be a big deal. So straight away, their reasons for delaying have changed. So what's the new reason if not inflation? Can't seem to find the answer to that one. Might be because the government have only just published their model for managing these import controls. In a functioning country, when there's going to be a huge change to the way trading is managed, the government publishes the system to be used and then gives a good couple of years for businesses on both sides of that trade border to get ready for the changes. Usually, changes like this come about as a result of a new trade deal, not like raising trade barriers, but lowering them. And that's why it takes so many years to negotiate a trade deal if you're doing it properly. But then there's always like 2 or 3 years to implement it. That implementation period is businesses getting ready for the new system. As of a few weeks ago, businesses wanting to either export to Britain or import into Britain still had no document telling them how it was going to work in detail. And the first phase was due to be implemented in 3 months. We should have worked out the details before we left the single market. Indeed, we should have not only worked out the details before we left the single market, we should have published the details and given businesses at least a year or two to prepare before leaving the single market. Leaving first and then worrying about how to deal with it later, that was the sort of reckless behaviour that no government of an advanced economy should be able to carry out and certainly cannot get away with. We haven't gotten away with it. Remember, this isn't just Boris Johnson. This is every MP who voted to allow him to take us out of the single market without any system in place to cope. His MPs, although they approved leaving the EU, when it came to leaving the single market, they should have said, hang on a minute. What do you mean you haven't got a system to cope with it? Will you wait? We'll vote ourselves out when you have got a system. Every single MP who voted for this to happen is responsible. And we also know that lots of industries, especially those involved in the food supply chain, are concerned that the government's plans are still not comprehensive enough. So although the government have now published the system to be used, experts who have read it are still not happy that the system is good enough. So this shiny new border target operating model is due for phase 1 now in January 2024. 3 full years after leaving the single market, 4 years after leaving the EU. And industries having to use it are still not happy that it will work properly. In terms of the impact, I've said before that it's better to implement it in January than October. Like in October and November, you've got trade ramping up ahead of the festive season. You know, madness to implement poorly thought out changes to trade then. Why would you? Even if it's not poorly thought out, you're bound to have some problems. You know, and especially when you haven't even given businesses enough time to understand the new system. January is much better because trade drops off a cliff after Christmas. But that is assuming they're going to implement a system which essentially works, might have a few teething problems, but essentially works. Because although phase 1, which is health certification, is now due to come into effect in January, phase 2 will be for April, when trade is picking up again. That means April for physical checks. Also, no matter when these measures are introduced, on the day they are, we lose access to some goods, particularly foodstuffs, from the EU immediately. It's really this simple. If it's not worth the cost and hassle of arranging for a health certificate, we lose those goods from our supply chain overnight. Although January is the best time to begin, when these measures are finally implemented, we will see the impact immediately. Will the Tories really want to deal with that as they begin their election year well behind in the polls? Or will they find another excuse to just leave it all for Labour to sort out? But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.